All right, let's look at some examples of compound sentences here. Two or more main clauses or dependent clauses, each containing subject and a predicate, each describing an action in itself. For instance, we have the economy stagnates and prices rise. The economy stagnates would be main clause 1, prices rise is main clause 2, and we have a coordinating conjunction there, which is and. Coordinating conjunctions are words such as and, but, however, any of these words that are used to attach these two different types of main clause or these two different clauses together. So and here would be our coordinating conjunction. Most coordinating conjunctions have a comma before them, except for and, which is a common misconception that people are taught through K-12. Another example here, we can lower the price of admission or we can stage fewer plays. Main clause 1, we can lower the price of admission. Main clause 2, we can stage fewer plays. The coordinating conjunction here would be or. He never went to the snake house again. He had been revolted by an alligator. So we've got a little bit different punctuation use here, but we still have main clause 1 preceding the semicolon, main clause 2 after the semicolon, each with its own subject and predicate. It's just a different sentence structure with different, not different sentence structure, but a different punctuation here that's changing. Instead of a coordinating conjunction, we have the semicolon. It's important to know that a compound sentence is or can be more than two parts. You can have many parts in there, and that's the issue with compound sentences, is that it tends to be too long. It tends to be too choppy. Oftentimes it ends up resulting in run-on sentences because it's just strings of phrases with commas. And so at its base level, using two main clauses, maybe even three would be acceptable. We'll look at an example of an insufficient type of compound sentence in a moment. But this example here, Clements pitched a curve. The runner on first sprinted towards second, and Barrett ran to cover the base. We have three different main or dependent clauses in this sentence strung together with commas. We have a coordinating conjunction and here. That sentence, I would say, is okay, still kind of boring, but you get the point. You can have more than two clauses in the sentence and it still be a compound sentence because of the subject predicate parameter on each clause. Here is an example of one that is just too much. And you can see that this kind of translates to being more conversational, too conversational. And it's at this point that we would really want to take this sentence and elevate it or change it in some way. There was more crime in the street. The criminals were running around free. The judges were letting people go. Nobody was safe in the streets. Criminals were out on bail. Murderers were on parole, and nobody did anything. Clearly, that's not academic by word choice alone, but just looking at the base type of this sentence, it's not sufficient for academic writing. So when it gets to this point, you would want to alter your sentence type and look at one that's more complex. Speaking of which, segue to the next type of sentence. A complex sentence occurs when one part of the sentence depends on the other, provides further variety, and allows for the writer to emphasize the relationship of ideas to others within the same sentence. So within complex sentences, you're able to start adding more detail. You're able to start extrapolating on the different relationships of words or ideas in your sentences. So it's a little bit more akin to an academic tone for a university audience. The clause that depends on the other for explanation or completion is the subordinate clause. The independent clause or dependent clause is the same as what we've already talked about. It can stand alone with its own subject and predicate. But the subordinate clause or the dependent clause really depends or really provides explanation or further extrapolation on that independent clause. For instance, because the economy stagnates, high-priced items find few buyers. On the right side of the comma here, we have our main clause, dependent clause, high-priced items find few buyers. We have our subject, we have our predicate, but the subordinate clause, the subordinate clause that precedes that main clause, because the economy stagnates, provides the essential contextual details we need to further understand why high-priced items find few buyers in this context of this sentence. We were good friends. We saw each other only in the summer. These, just two basic, simple sentences here. If we take these two simple sentences and look at a way that we can make this a little bit more complex, you can turn one of these dependent clauses into a subordinate clause in conjunction with a main clause to make it more sophisticated and to fuse the two together. Although we were good friends, comma, we saw each other only in the summer. We have our main clause on the right. We have our subordinate clause on the left. We were good friends, comma, although we saw each other only in the summer. The converse of that, we have our main clause on the left, and then we have the other idea on the right, although we saw each other only in the summer. Clearly, you can see that although we saw each other only in the summer is not a main clause. It's not dependent. It can't stand alone. It's not complete. And so it is simply extrapolating on the main clause of we were good friends to provide additional detail. Finally, the goal that we're looking at, compound complex sentence structure, combining compound and complex sentences using at least two independent clauses and one subordinate. So we're looking at a fusion of the compound sentence structure and complex. And this is where you can really start becoming creative with your punctuation, your semicolons, the hyphens, the ellipses that I showed you, and really start creating sentences, pulling all your simple sentences together and fusing them into sentences that really elevate your tone. This is the goal. We should all be leaning more to this compound and compound complex sentence structure in order to elevate your tone. As an example here, if you had only proofread the article more carefully, Mr. Crumbly would not have been so insulted and we would not have had this lawsuit on our hands. So you can see we have the compound sentence structure in purple. Mr. Crumbly would not have been so insulted, and as our coordinating conjunction, we would not have this lawsuit on our hands. So we have two different dependent clauses there in the compound sentence structure. And then the first part of that sentence is our subordinate clause, if you had only proofread the article more carefully. And so it provides additional detail to the compound sentence structure that follows. This is an instance where you can use, like I mentioned, the hyphen and the ellipses to really add emphasis. Those are two stylistic elements that allow you to do this. So if you ever need an instance where you're using a comma already to string these clauses together and you need to emphasize an idea or to pause, you can use that ellipses or hyphen. And so I know that these are basic ideas, and I know that they can be difficult to translate into your own writing, but the moral of the story here is that word choice matters. And so being really strategic in the use of the words that you're employing in your sentence and how you start pulling your sentences together really does have an impact on your academic tone, and it is more or less step one. And so what I want everyone to do is to start thinking about the way they're writing and approaching their sentences and their word choice moving forward, and start using the complex compound sentence structure when you can. Compound sentences are fine, but we don't want to see strings of simple sentences. We don't want to see long, drawn-out, run-on sentences that result from strings of compound sentences strung together by commas. And so this is how you start developing your style while staying in the parameters of a style guide, while leaving an overall academic impression that's suitable for university audience. And developing as a writer, these are all important things. They do require you to learn punctuation and learn and reinforce all of the basic ideas of standard written English and English grammar, but you can do it. It's not going to happen overnight, but we do need a starting point. So moving forward, I'm going to start reviewing your content for word choice, but also for sentence structure. I want to see that you're varying the way that you're writing your sentences. What do we do in academic writing is we make contact. We want to make sure there's shared meaning. For instance, when we talked about the communication model in academic writing and how it falls in that model, the ultimate goal is to convey a point, to convey some type of content in pursuit of shared meaning with your audience, so that they get what you're trying to send. We're doing this to ensure that our academic tone makes an impact and makes contact with our audience in an academic setting, that readers trust you and can follow your ideas seamlessly and can compute your logic, that they can decode the information that you've encoded and sent over for their reception, and that it makes sense. And this requires us to constantly understand our audience, understand our purpose, what we're writing, what we're asked to do, and how our audience is going to interpret the information in the writing that we are putting together, drafting, and sending for them to read. All right. I just realized that I've almost recorded about an hour of content. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to show you the assignments for this week or for this part of the week. And then what we're going to do, since we talked about sentence structure, word choice today, we will talk about theses, statements, introductions, conclusions, and unity in a future video. This will help you write your first essay. You know, if you're looking at that prompt and you ask, how am I going to start this? How am I going to focus my ideas and translate that into my writing? I will put that together in another modular series of videos for you to be able to work through those in a future video. So don't worry about that. There will be in-class writing 6 and 7. You will see the instructions for those in Canvas. Just read the prompt, submit by the appropriate due date to be counted as present if you choose the online option. Read writer's reference, sentence style, and word choice. These are tabbed sections towards the end where the writing style sections are, such as MLA, APA. Just find these particular sections. There's a lot of really good examples of sentence style, how to improve the sentence style using different punctuation and coordinating conjunctions, etc. Those are 2 good reference points. The reading itself, chapter 9, effective sentences and models for writers. Ignore my typo in models. So yeah, those are the readings, the in-class writing. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Moving forward, the Tuesday, Thursday, our regularly scheduled class time will remain optional, but I will be holding writing workshops for you to come in person and work on your academic essay. I'll be there to help you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.